After months of anti-government agitation and mounting pressure, Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Mahinda Rajapaksa, on Monday resigned. But the situation remains extremely tense and volatile across the country. On Monday, at least 7 people were killed and more than 190 others injured in a wave of violence between Rajapaksa supporters and anti-government protesters. On your screen are 3 residences of Mahinda Rajapaksa. All of them came under attack. The one in Colombo was surrounded by protesters who rammed barricades into the gates of the residence. The other 2, located in other parts of the island nation, were set on fire. In another incident, a ruling party lawmaker shot dead an anti-government protester and then took his own life during the clashes. Opposition Member of Parliament Sajith Premadasa also came under attack, but he was attacked by a huge mob. The visuals of the attack are on your screen. His security staff later bundled him into a car driving off from the scene. Mobs also attacked the controversial Rajapaksa Museum. This museum is located in the ruling family's ancestral village of Meda Mulana. It was constructed in 2014 when Mahinda was president. 2 wax statues of the Rajapaksa parents were flattened and the building was trashed. The house of another member of parliament was also set on fire. He was the one who led a mob to attack the Gale-faced protesters. Dozens of buses were also torched or damaged across the country. These buses were used by the Rajapaksa supporters to travel to Colombo. 3 pickup trucks were also pushed into a lake. The violence began when Rajapaksa supporters attacked anti-government protesters. Most of these supporters were ferried from rural areas. They chanted pro-Rajapaksa slogans. They attacked unarmed protesters who were outside the president's house. And joining us live from Colombo is our correspondent Dasunia Thauda, who has been tracking all the updates on Ground Zero. Dasunia Thauda, good to see you. The events that unfolded yesterday, including arson attacks on the homes of several politicians, is being termed as Bloody Monday. We understand the curfew has been extended. Tell us more about that, and have the protests rested or not?
Well, good morning, Eric. Nice to hear from you too. Well, yes, yesterday was certainly a very violent day here in Sri Lanka, because as of right now, 7 individuals have died following these protests and 231 have been injured and are currently receiving treatment. A few of them are critical and also in the ICU. Well, as of right now, because curfew is in effect until 7 a.m. tomorrow, which is the 11th of May, protesters seem to have fizzled out, and many roads along Colombo and its suburbs are completely deserted.
Dasuni, Sri Lanka's former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa is facing calls for his arrest from the opposition politicians who are claiming he incited violence against peaceful anti-government protesters that claimed at least 5 lives, like you mentioned there. Can you confirm this?
Yes, there have been growing calls by the opposition and a faction of the public as well for the former Prime Minister to be arrested and be held accountable for what transpired yesterday. Now, keep in mind, Sri Lanka has been having protests for more than a month, and most of them have largely been very peaceful, with little to no violence that were reported over the past few weeks. However, what happened yesterday was we had 2 factions of protesters. One were the pro-government protesters and the other were the anti-government protesters who were already protesting at these prominent protest sites for weeks. So it was the clash between the pro and anti-government protesters that initially fueled this very unpleasant and violent attacks on either parties.
Well, even after Mahinda resigning, there is still unease in the country, with many calling for the president to follow suit. The demands have taken a whole new dimension, haven't they?
Yes, in fact, they have. When you have a section of the public that are still unsatisfied with the decision of only the Prime Minister resigning, large section of the public who are still demanding for President Gotabaya Rajapaksa also to step down. Now, also in your latest developments, we do know that the Speaker has called for an emergency parliamentary sitting and has requested the President to facilitate this, because as of right now, following the resignation of former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Sri Lanka still does not have a Prime Minister or a Cabinet of Ministers, because when the Prime Minister of the country steps down, the Cabinet of Ministers also automatically ceases to function.
Live from Colombo, our correspondent Dasunia Thanda, thank you very much for that input and for talking to us today. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.